Welcome back. Well, the chemical sector is in focus. A lot of global companies have given profit warnings. They have spoken about the discretionary side of the sector not doing so well. So what's the outlook? Which are the companies which are seeing this pressure? And a lot more. Let's discuss it with Mr. Ajay Joshi, who's the independent chemical analyst, joining us now to talk about this. Ajay, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, recently we saw the export data from these companies. It looked subdued. There are profit warnings coming in from global players as well. Tell us what's happening here. What is the outlook for the second half of FY23 as well?
Thank you, Sonal. The outlook, as you rightly talked about, it's a grim situation for the entire year. And not only this year, next year also, we will see similar subdued demand as well as diminishing margins for both Indian as well as some of the global chemical companies. In case of Indian chemical companies, most of the Indian chemical companies are highly commoditized. Their revenue comes from either one or two end segment or one or two major products. Plus, most of them are export dependent. But with China coming back into the game after the pandemic profits of these Indian companies are fading away. So this is what is causing them to struggle. So most of the commoditized chemical companies are struggling because the demand is very, very weak, specifically in the Latin America region, in the US market, as well as in the European market. On the other side, the supplies are very much back to normal. China is dumping chemicals right away into the Latin American market, Southeast Asian market, and in the European market. So that's the kind of turmoil Indian chemical companies are facing. In terms of global companies, the discretionary cost, as well as the large number of investment, the capex investment that they had announced, they are not able to fulfill the demand. The downstream demand is not there against their announced investment. So the trend is going to continue for second half of the year as well as for next year also.
Okay, so the grim situation could continue in the chemical space. Is it across the segment? How do you split it between specialty chemicals? A lot of capex is happening there versus, say, the other sectors that people are looking at.
So Sonal, in the specialty chemical segment, some of the companies in India are safer than others, but specialty chemical companies involved only in agrochemical or pharmaceutical are struggling a bit. But specialty chemical companies in the fluorination space, where they have contract manufacturing opportunities, they have their orders secured for next 2 to 3 years, they are very much safer. So companies like SRF, companies like PI Industries, companies like Anupam Rasayan, which are continuously expanding into a new fluorination segment, like Anupam Rasayan is getting involved into fluoropolymers and fluorosurfactants now, which is a great business opportunity for export in the Japanese, Korean, and the US market for lithium-ion battery, hydrogen battery, and semiconductor space. So Indian companies now need to diversify to, balance out this challenge. In terms of commodity space, whether it is soda ash suppliers or caustic soda suppliers or surfactant or linear alkyl benzene or any basic solvent suppliers from India, they are all struggling. They are suffering with the Chinese syndrome. The Chinese companies are much cheaper and back in the market because there is no local demand in China. So Chinese companies are also forced to export their chemicals in the target markets, which were earlier with Indian chemical companies. So commodity companies are, in nutshell, suffering more than specialty chemical companies.
So finally, before we let you go, Ajay, your top picks in the sector, your top sells and your top buys?
For me, I think Aether Industries, Jubilant Ingrevia, these two are good companies to watch out for. In terms of companies where, we can probably pull out some of the commoditized chemical companies, which 60-70% of their revenue comes from commodity chemicals, we need to pull out from them.
Like
Deepak Nitrite, Lakshmi Organics, and Jubilant Ingrevia, and all the Aarti Group companies. They are highly dependent on one sector and commoditized chemicals.
Okay, all right, Ajay. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your take. So that's the outlook on the specialty chemicals and the commodity chemical companies. We'll do one thing, quickly slip into a break, and we'll continue this focus on chemical space. Harshvardhan Goenka, who's the ED, Strategy and Business Development, Lakshmi Organic Industries, will be with us to discuss the overall demand outlook. Stay tuned.